Mr. Mamdani, welcome to the show.
It's such a pleasure to be here, Ellie. I'm sorry that it's not in person, but I look forward to that being the next time.
Well, it's a busy day, as we know, in New York, not just for you because it's the last day of voting, but it is the New York City Marathon, which you were running in last year. It's always an exciting day for us. It's one of the things when you look at the marathon, when you're up on the Upper West Side and you see all the runners closing in, what you realize is although the world is running in this marathon, it's a real snapshot into how diverse this city is. And the topic of diversity has come up a few times in the past week. Your opponent, Andrew Cuomo, was on this network yesterday morning with my colleagues on the weekend, and he said, quote, "Our diversity is our strength, but it can also be a weakness." Last Wednesday on a podcast, Vice President J.D. Vance said that it's totally reasonable and acceptable for Americans to want to live next to people with whom they have a commonality, like people who speak the same language as them. You come from one of the most diverse parts of New York City. What's your take on this?
Well, I think first, when Andrew Cuomo said that diversity is a weakness, he also then misidentified which black host he was speaking to on this very network. And we're seeing not only is he Donald Trump's puppet, but he's starting to also become Donald Trump's parrot, because we're hearing the very same kind of language of hate and division coming from him in his final acts in public life, out of a desperation and an understanding that the only thing that he's actually cared about all these years, power, is actually slipping away from him. And to hear this from the vice president, it just completely reveals what the Republican Party has to offer Americans in this time. The issue is not what language Americans are speaking at the dinner table, it's that they can't afford to put food on it. And I'm proud to be running a campaign that recognizes the belonging of each and every New Yorker, no matter where they were born or when they got here, and is looking to make the most expensive city in the United States of America affordable for all.
Speaking about language, on Vance's comments about stirring up concerns about people who don't speak the same language, this is not a fear that you have. I was not clear on how many languages you seem to be able to speak, but you've made some campaign videos in a few different languages. I just want to have my viewers listen to a couple of them.
Hola, Nueva York. Ya pueden salir a votar y estoy pidiendo su apoyo. Por favor, busque su lugar de votación más cercano y voten por mí para ser su próximo alcalde. مرحبا، أنا اسمي زهران ممداني وعم رشح حالي ليكون العمدة الجديد في مدينة نيويورك. بعرف شو عم تفكروا، شكلي كأني صهركم من الشام، بس العربي تبعي بده شوية شغل.
All right, I'm taking off Spanish and Arabic there. What else do you speak? And again, in a world where people are sort of saying diversity is our problem and you're too diverse and you're a Muslim and this and that, you're fully leaning into this on your social media, that not only do you like diversity, but you practice it.
Yeah, and I think it's what it means to be a New Yorker. Look, I speak English and I speak Hindi, but as you can see, I will try very hard to learn enough of a language to make a video. And there's a reason some of those videos start in the daytime and end in the night, and there's a reason some of those cuts are very, very quick. It's because it takes quite a bit of work.
What's the point? What's the point to New Yorkers? You're not hiding who you are or the fact that you love the diversity of this city and this country.
Yeah, I think the point is understanding what makes New York City such a special place. This is a city of the world. I am representing Queens right now in the state legislature, and it's called the world's borough. And part of that, as you said, is a reflection of the fact that it's one of the most diverse counties in the entire country. And for so long, when people have run for office, they have gone to political consultants and asked them which voters they should focus on. And we wanted to reject that assessment that there was a set of New Yorkers you could leave out on the basis of their voting propensity or on the basis of the languages that they speak. And we wanted to make sure that we brought our political case to each and every person that called the city home. And what we're finding is that when you treat New Yorkers, no matter how often they voted or whether they voted at all, with the respect and dignity that they deserve, they will respond in kind, whether that is speaking about young people, whether that's speaking about immigrant voters, whomever the Andrew Cuomos of the world like to overlook. Those are the very New Yorkers who can also be at the heart of our democratic process.
I had Brad Lander on the show yesterday. You and Brad Lander cross-endorsed each other, and he's out there as a surrogate for you. Let's talk about the continued allegations of anti-Semitism against you. What do you say to a Jewish New York voter who's watching this right now, who has heard through social media or various articles or ads that you're anti-Semitic?
I think first what I would say is that there's no room for anti-Semitism in this city. And it's a scourge that I would root out of the 5 boroughs as someone who will be leading the entirety of the city. And I lead this city not just to lead Jewish New Yorkers who vote for me, but frankly any Jewish New Yorker and any New Yorker who calls this city home. And a few weeks ago I was on the M57, which in case you're wondering is the slowest bus in New York City, traveling at an average speed of 4.9 miles an hour. And seated right next to me was a speech therapist who introduced herself to me as a Jewish New Yorker. She told me that her daughter is a big fan and she phone banks from college, and she said that she herself was less sure about our campaign. And so we started to speak, and she asked me, about my thoughts on Israel and Palestine. She asked me about my thoughts on anti-Semitism here in New York City, and she also shared with me an anecdote of where she's trying to sell her apartment, and her realtor came over, looked at the books on her bookshelf, and said, "Take the Jewish books off." And I told her that was unacceptable, because this is a city that we're looking to do more than just protect Jewish New Yorkers, but a city where we're looking to celebrate and cherish those Jewish New Yorkers. And I've made clear my thoughts on Israel and Palestine, and I'm also running to be the leader of this city. And that means leading everyone, no matter their opinions on that subject or any subject, to ensure that this is a city that they can see themselves in, whether in my city hall or in the city that they call home.
One of the top slogans and promises of your campaign is to freeze the rent. Now, there's some things you've promised your campaign that you don't have direct control over, but this is one of them that you do. This would affect roughly 1 million rent-stabilized units in the city. That's overseen by something called the Rent Guidelines Board, which you would have oversight over as mayor. Roughly 2 million tenants overall. Now, if you succeed with that freeze, what would the effect be? Obviously, we know what they'd be on those 2 million tenants, those 1.1 million properties. What would it be on everybody else? Because there are a lot of people who are not in rent-stabilized places in New York who still pay 40, 50, 60% of their income on housing.
This would be one part of a larger housing agenda, which in its totality speaks to all 8.5 million people who call the city home. And for the about half of all tenants who live in market rate units, as you're describing, facing these skyrocketing rents, we would also be building 200,000 new affordable homes over the next 10 years from the public sector, and also making it easier for the private sector to build more housing. Because one of the key parts of the housing crisis that we're facing in New York City is that of a crisis of supply, a crisis of production. And we have to make that crisis come to an end by learning the lessons we've seen in Jersey City, where for every 1,000 people, they're building 7 homes. Here in New York City, we're struggling for 4, while Tokyo is already at 10. And this is an example of how, for a long time, politicians have taken a language of New York exceptionalism to justify mediocrity in the city. And it's time to actually deliver excellence and efficiency at the heart of a public sector that we care deeply about.
We're talking about your social media reach, the fact that you do a lot of social media. You get out there. You've got a particularly young audience, the type of audience who may not be watching us right now. But there's a lot of money going into traditional media in this race. The most prominent of the groups that are raising money for this is a group called Fix the City. It's raised more than $35 million. 2 others have raised $2.5 million and $1.5 million, respectively. Some of the donors include Michael Bloomberg. He's given almost $10 million since before the primary. Members of the Lauder family. The hedge fund executive Bill Ackman, the hotel and casino magnate Steve Wynn. Many of these groups are supporting Andrew Cuomo. How do you explain that to New York voters? How do you what connections do you draw between the donors and Cuomo's campaign?
I think Bill Ackman may be under the misapprehension that for every strongly worded tweet he sends out, he has to donate another $100,000 to Andrew Cuomo's super PAC. I think largely what you see with these kinds of donors and these kinds of donations is a desire to keep a system that has been rigged to benefit the very few in this city at the expense of the very many. And I understand why they would be concerned at the prospect of Andrew Cuomo losing this race, because it's not just him as an individual, it's also his style of politics, where access and influence can be bought. And I'm proud to be here sitting in front of you as the Democratic nominee, not by virtue of the donations we've received, though we did max out the public matching funds here in New York City, but by virtue of the volunteer team that we have built, of now more than 100,000 volunteers who today are on the precipice of breaking a New York State record for most doors knocked in a 24-hour period. And that's what this campaign really is about. It's about bringing democracy back to working people.
Let's talk about that most doors knocked. You're looking to break 200,000, not break. You don't want to break the doors. You want to knock on 200,000 doors today and break a record. Talk to me about this, because you have tens of thousands of volunteers. You have more volunteers than many people have voters.
Yes, it's truly one of the honors of this campaign is to lead now more than 100,000 volunteers. And what we've seen in these volunteers is that they make the difference, because for all of the money that is spent on ads and on a smear and slander campaign, for many New Yorkers, the moment that will actually open their eyes as to what's actually on the ballot is when they have a conversation with another New Yorker. And that comes from a conversation at their doorstep. It comes from a conversation on the phone. It might even come from a conversation as they're waiting for the train, which Andrew Cuomo defunded when he was the governor of New York State. And what we found is that in these conversations, it can get back to the heart of what this race should be about, which is cost of living. And so often that's been pushed to the side because other candidates don't actually have a plan to address it. And, you know, as much as you and I, Ali, may be living and breathing this race as well as many other New Yorkers, there are many other of our neighbors across these 5 boroughs for whom the struggle to afford this city is so difficult that tuning into politics is something that happens in the final days. And I actually had a friend of mine, Charlie, who went and knocked on some doors in Hell's Kitchen a few days ago. And afterwards he shared that he spoke to a man who had not heard of me as yet. He had not heard of what was happening in this race. And that conversation was what inspired him to take another look. And that's the way that we're going to win this race on Tuesday.
One of the things that somebody said to me the other day is, I can't believe I've got to vote for Andrew Cuomo, but I just don't think Mamdani's got the experience. He's young. He didn't have a beef with you and your views and your energy. He said, this is one of the biggest political jobs in the world. I mean, probably the second hardest in America.
It is an incredibly difficult job. It's also an incredible opportunity to serve the people of the city. And I'm proud of my record as a state assembly member, of someone who won close to $500 million in debt relief for thousands of working class taxi drivers, who won the first free buses in New York City history and stopped a frack gas power plant from being built in Queens. And I'll also be prouder still of assembling a team around me that has experience that spans generations and a number of mayoral administrations, because New Yorkers deserve to have the best and the brightest serving them in City Hall, not a collection of examples of patronage politics that we've seen under this current administration.
Zohran Mamdani, it's going to be a very busy day for you. I do want to remind New York voters, this is your last day for advance voting. So if you plan to vote on Tuesday, that's fine. It's 2025. There's no reason or excuse to not vote. Just take friends with you and go vote for whoever you wish to vote for. Zohran Mamdani is the Democratic mayoral nominee in New York, and he is a New York State Assembly member. Thanks for your time this morning.